Hey everybody, it's Scotty from Scotty's Record Shop with another artist profile. This time, the group Kansas, which is I really like Kansas. I think that they're looked at more for their arena rock appeal, kind of all their classic hit type stuff. But they were really initially a really good progressive rock band from the Midwest, and I think sometimes people can overlook that. And they certainly have gone through their changes. I'll show you what I have for vinyl of them, and we'll talk about all that stuff. Okay, um, let's go to their first record, 1974, I believe this was, on Kirshner. This is where they stayed, I believe, through a big chunk of their stuff. There's Kirshner right there. The lyric inner sleeve for this one, and I put this back in here. This is a really good, underrated, as far as I'm concerned, album from their catalog. Come on, I'm going to pull this out like that. We'll just do this, okay? Here's your cover to that. Always had interesting cover art as well. That's their first record. I'm guessing, 74, I believe this was, without looking at it, without putting my reading glasses on. They came up here to Maine for the first time. I think it was in 75, and put on an incredible show. And I think this was the album they came for. What a great record this is. Such an underrated. The album is Song for America, and the Song for America is such a fantastic song. The rest of the album is really good as well. This is a later pressing, so I think it's just got it's just got the paper inner sleeve. I can't remember if initially this had a lyric inner sleeve or anything, but as you can tell because of the barcode, it's an early 80s pressing that I have of this one. But a great album from them. Their record label was giving them a little bit of a hard time. They're making all these extended, wonderful songs, and they were selling well, concert, and the albums were selling, but they wanted some hit singles. So this next record, even though the format was starting to change and shift a little towards shorter songs in most cases and tighter arrangements and stuff, but still a great record. This is another one of these really underrated albums, I think, by this band. Mask, 75 or 76. I think this was really 76. And this is another early 80s pressing, so you get that inner paper sleeve, unfortunately, on Kirshner as well. Nothing unusual about the label at all. The album that broke them, made them rich and famous, is probably my favorite album by them. And the funny thing is there were two primary writers in the band: the singer keyboard player Steve Walsh and Kerry Livgren. Well, Steve Walsh had hit a stumbling block writing. He couldn't, just nothing was coming. So basically, this album is Kerry Livgren, and what an album this was. Unfortunately, thank you for Smack, who wrote your name on this. Thank you. I appreciate that. But this does have an original inner sleeve. This is the album that brought you Carry On Wayward Son. But there's, The Wall. What else is on here? Miracles Out of Nowhere. Opus Magnum. Just a great album from Kansas, 1976. And Left Overture, by the way, was the name of the album. Everything about that. I love the cover, love the name, and just love the album. There you go. Next one we get, they're, as Kerry Livgren referred to them at this particular point in time, they were the flavor of the month. They were really popular, riding high. We get Point of No Return, as in KNOW, as in knowledge. This is the album that brought you, of course, Point of No Return. And, of course, the song, Kerry Livgren actually kind of regrets writing now, to a certain extent, the song Dust in the Wind, which is kind of like a hopeless, all we are is dust in the wind. And he was always searching spiritually. He's quite an intelligent man. I've had a couple of email conversations with him. He's a very, very, very intelligent man, very spiritual person, and had been searching for years and years and years for answers to questions that he had been looking for, meaning of life, and really sparked on by the death of grandparents and wondering what happened to them, and searched. And he has an incredible knowledge of different religions of the world, and a really nice guy too. Just don't get into an argument with him because he's going to win. It's just the way Gary Livgren is. But so Kansas albums are very littered with philosophies and mystical pictures and stuff. Very interesting. And this is a great album as well. 1979. Gatefold. People of the Southland was on this record. The only single issued off of it. Didn't do as well commercially, but still I felt this was a good album. I can't remember what religion Carey was saying he was into. It was very latent on this album. And he joked once about this particular religion that he was involved with. He thought he might have been the only one living at the time that was into it. He was just... in 1979, he had an experience, a band that was touring with them for this particular tour. The guitar player was this long, blonde-haired looking guy who was a Christian. And Carey Livgren was kind of like, don't talk to me about Christianity. Come on, there's got to be something other than that. A lot of people can be. It's so uncool to be a Christian. And I'm saying that not as a knock because I'm one, but it is kind of uncool to be a Christian. So, some things happened. Before I show you that, though, or talk about that, we get two for the show. Great live album this is. I remember vividly my parents getting this album for me for allowance money. I would do allowance, and this doesn't have the original. This is not my original copy. It doesn't have the original. There was an original picture sleeves to this, which I don't have on this copy. But I remember my parents. I do my chores, and the deal would be you buy me an album at the end of the week or whatever it was. Well, they were cool about it, but they were a little aggravated at this one because it was a double album. It cost them a little bit more, and I still remember the complaining that they did. This is a great record, though. Two for the show, Kansas Live, 1979. Anyway, like I said, Carey Livgren, 79, had this conversation with this guy who was in this band, and the short version is ended up becoming a Christian. Which he still is to this day, which caused a lot of issues in the band, because not everybody wanted to be a Christian band or wanted to even play Christian tainted kind of music or Audio Visions, the next LP from them. This had some very strong Christian undercurrents to it, and it did cause tension in the band. This was the last of the original band lineups, LPs. This has the single "Hold On," great single from them. Not a bad album. By this point in time, they were definitely not quite as progressive as they used to be. They were more kind of just an arena rock kind of pop band. Show you another copy of this. I pulled it, and just so you can see, it's a promotional pressing I won from our little local radio station, WBLM. The Blimp, the rock and roll Blimp, won this back in 1980. Hence the ring wear and the whole thing. Anyway, 1980 or so, Steve Walsh leaves the band. Carey Livgren decides to do a solo album. So Steve Walsh first. His solo album. A lot of people really come down hard on this album. They say what a horrible album it is. It's not a great album. It's not bad. It's not horrible though. But he was out of the band for a while. He's back in the band now, but wasn't in the band. And Carey Livgren, his first album. A lot of people on this album. He doesn't, from my memory, I haven't heard this for a while, but he doesn't you know, break into any versions of, you know, Lord, I lift your name on high or anything like that. But it's very obvious that he has become a Christian at this point in time. And by this point in time, too, the bass player of Kansas has become a Christian. Um, Oddly enough, I had talked to him about this album because Ronnie James Dio, who I've also met, who was a really, really nice guy. I don't agree with his spiritual direction, but he was a really, really, really sweet man. Um, he sings on this. He does some vocal work on this album. And asked Kerry, you know, you guys were in totally diametrically kind of opposed, spiritually kind of directions. Why did you pick Ronnie to do this? And he was like, well, the guy has a great voice, you know, and he agreed to it, and everything was cool, you know, and it was cool. You know, this is Kerry's still putting out albums, by the way. But, that's his solo album. Of course, Steve Walsh is out of the band. Um, we get a guy named John Elefante, and on vocals and stuff. John, I don't know if John was a Christian when he joined the band. If he wasn't, I'm sure Kerry Livgren fixed that issue. But by the time he became a Christian and actually became quite a big Christian artist in the late '80s, early '90s, mid '90s, on Christian music radio and stuff. John Elefante and his brother. But this was the first album that they did. This was really a great album, I thought. You know, Vinyl Confessions, 1982, still on the Kirshner label, by the way. Um, and let me see if we get a nurse sleeve on here. Yeah, we do. Of course, this has the song "Play the Game Tonight," which Kerry Livgren wrote because it was kind of like he was like really getting sick of this whole rock star, the stupidity of it all. You know, kind of the egos and the attitudes and just the whole thing of it. You know, so he was kind of expressing that by, you know, every night he had to go on stage and play the game. You know, it's a great song. Didn't do all that well commercially. I mean, I remember buying the single before I bought the album. But Chasing Shadows, what is it? Chasing Shadows in the Night, I believe. Chasing Shadows. What a great, great song. But definitely, you know, this album's going to make you think, you know. Again, no We Lift Your Name on High, Lord, We Lift Your Name on High, or anything like that. But this is definitely still got Christian undercurrent to it. The next one, and I'd seen this band a couple of times. This was one of the tours I saw them for. Drastic Measures. I'm kind of losing my love for the band at this particular point in time. It was okay. Fight Fire with Fire was a great song. But, I don't know. This has got a custom label to it. After this, they put out a best of comp, which I have on CD upstairs. I didn't pull that. They remixed a bunch of things, as they put it, to make it sound better. I prefer, like, Carry On Wayward Son. I prefer the original mix without the reverb on the drums and stuff. But that's what they were doing. They were trying to do a mid '80s readjustment to some of their earlier music. A great album, though, the Best of Kansas. The next album we get was '86, I believe. At this point in time, Kerry Livgren wasn't in the band, I don't believe, at this point in time, and I don't know. This is just, it's, for those of you who like, you know, synth, pop, rock, kind of '80s, this stuff really would work well for you. You know, Power was the name of this album, and I think at this point in time, I'll pull it out but my guess was that at this point in time they were on MCA. Let's take a look and see. Yay, I was right. Look at that. MCA. I mean, it's not a bad album. You can get it fairly cheaply, too, inexpensively. But, I don't know. You know, it just didn't do it for me because it's not, you know, it's not my particular style of music. Whatever. The last record I have, 1988, I believe. For this one, it is In the Spirit of Things. I believe Steve Walsh was back at this particular point in time. John Elefante and his brothers and all that were on their Christian careers, having great success. This album isn't bad. I can handle this album a little better than Power. I don't know why, but there's your sleeve. Again, I've gone way too long like I always do because I'm a Jabba Jaws. Really do like the group Kansas. If you've only heard their FM-friendly hits, I encourage you to explore their music beyond that, especially the first 4 or 5 albums from the 70s. Really, really good stuff. Alrighty, gang. Until next time, peace and love.